Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Sketch to See. I am making this episode on site here at the Xiamen shipyard for HH catamarans. And the reason for this episode is due to the popularity of the last episode. The majority of the comments were people wanted to know some of the more technical aspects of the boat, that being the engine rooms and the hydraulics. So that's what you're going to see on this video. And if you haven't already, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and share. A little click from you goes a long way for us. We'd really appreciate it. So as you have just seen, I have now climbed down into the starboard side engine room, and I am 6 foot tall, so there's quite a bit of space in here. But let's flip it around and see what we see as far as some of the equipment goes. So now I'm in the starboard side engine room. We have one of 2 Kohler brand generators. Moving forward of that, we have the 2 exhaust pipes, one for the Yanmar 4LV195 diesel, which I will show you in a second, and the other is directly for the generator. Here we have engine start-stop bus bars. In this middle section here, we have the C-zone control for this room, the C-zone module, and then here is another start-stop bus bar. Just moving behind that, we have this engine room fan, which just circulates air through this room. Here is that Yanmar diesel that I just mentioned earlier. And then moving forward of that, if you look here, we have our fuel filtration system and our exhaust. So we previously removed the water from the exhaust so we don't hear gurgling and slushing. That is done in this little contraption right here. With our fuel filters, we can polish the fuel for day use, or we can polish it and send it back to the tanks. This is our AGM engine start battery here. And then if you look up, here is our fire suppression system for this room. And this beautiful little device right here, this FLIR camera, is a full thermal camera. And the reason for that is if there ever is an event in this room, we can turn this camera on and see where the heat is coming from. And that might potentially change what we decide to do and how we decide to attack it if we're up in the helm station. Here's our huge cord reel for our shore power, and that is just absolutely massive. And then if you look here, here is the hydraulic ram for the steering. Here is the rudder stock that goes to the giant through hole. And then if we go all the way back down and in here, here are some more aspects of the hydraulic steering system. Look at all of that big empty space in that sugar scoop. It is great. And here we have the capstan for med mooring. That's actually on deck, and then some hot cold water lines that we are moving around the vessel here. And then here is another engine exhaust fan. And then if we go under, there's a few various water pumps, and that is part of our oil change system for the generator and the engine. So let's jump over to the other side where there is currently a generator running. Here I am going down the fixed ladder into the port side engine room where there is currently a generator running. So I don't know if you can hear me or not, but we will see. So as I have said, I've just dropped down into the port side. This is pretty much a mirror of the starboard side engine room. Here we have the engine start-stop, the C-zone control module for the engine room, more various bus bars. This 24 kilowatt synchronized Kohler generator is currently running. That is an engine room exhaust fan back there. We have also power and lights in here, which I forgot to tell you on the other side, so we can do whatever tools we need to. Here is the rudder stock attached to the hydraulic ram that controls it back and forth. Then we have our shore power reel here. And then look at all that cavernous storage space we've got back there. And again, if you look up here, this is the other capstan that we have for med mooring. And then moving back forward a little bit, we have the other FLIR camera. And then this is more various bus bars for the fire suppression system. And if we look down here, we have our engine start-stop battery for the Yanmar 4LV195 turbo diesel engine. And then we have our exhaust system there with the same fuel filtration system with the same capabilities here. And these are the various exhaust pipes there. And then the one thing I didn't mention on the other side, that cool little blue thing, is an underwater light for the exterior. And then here we have a few independent little water separators and water filters for the various equipment in here. I believe there's another one right there attached to the fuel bowl and whatnot. And then here we have water systems on board. And the reasons we have some of these water systems in these engine rooms is specifically because we run our engine exhaust through the domestic hot water before it is thrown overboard to collect the heat. I'm going to jump out of here because it is very hot. Now that I've just crawled out of the port engine room, which is right down here, let's go forward and see what we have in the bow locker and the bow storage compartments. Just for viewers, this is the channel we're expected to leave through in a few weeks. This is obviously low tide. Hi everybody, I have now climbed into our forward bow locker, and again I'm 6 feet tall and this is overhead and it will close behind me quite easily with me in it. So let me show you what we've got in here. Starting as you come in, we have these fixed stairs. This is an air conditioning vent, and I'll get to that in a second. You come down the stairs. Immediately at the bottom of the stairs, we have our bow thruster. And this is its own watertight compartment, and then there's a watertight compartment on top of it as well. And currently this locker extends all the way forward, and we have those sails in here. Those are our head sails. They just have not gone up yet. You can see all these little soft loops all throughout this entire compartment if you look carefully. Those are for hanging and securing anything that we want to put up here. That's why we put so many of them, is just to make sure we can tie everything down exactly how and when we would like to. And this forward compartment, as I just mentioned, is fully air conditioned, and we have both both power and light switches there. And if I move into the compartment under the stairs, you can see this lovely little carbon fiber tube down there is one of our 2 Schenker water makers. I will let you know what their capacity is shortly. And then here is the AC unit for this forward compartment. And the reason we chose to air condition this forward compartment is really mainly for dehumidification. So we can put stuff in here wet and it will eventually dry out. Not to mention it'll be a lot more comfortable if anybody has to come in here, because it is smoking hot here right now. So let's continue up on to the bow locker stations. So here we are in the forward locker. This is the port side one. And right here we have our hydraulic power pack for the entire vessel. This has 10 individual motors that cycle on or off depending on what the requirement is and what is being used on the boat. For example, all 10 of them spool up for the bow thruster, and only 3 or 4 of them might be used depending on how many winches are being used. This little gray device is a programmable logistics computer, and this is here for the hydraulic power pack itself. And then under the step here that we have for easy access is just some general tool storage. And this is one of the main manifolds for the hydraulic system that we have on board. Moving to midships forward along the center line, we have our principal anchor and our secondary anchor. I will leave the sizes for these 2 anchors in the description below, and then our principal windlass and chain and our secondary windlass and chain. Both with their individual separate compartments, foot control pedals for each, fresh water wash down here only. And then now moving to the port side locker, where we have ventilation fan. And in this semi-waterproof compartment are 4 300 amp hour batteries that are designed to power the bow thruster. So yes, the bow thruster is hydraulic, but we needed to place these batteries here closer to the power pack, and that saved a lot of weight in cabling because all of these batteries can be used to power that hydraulic power pack at that far end. Just going to give you a quick general look of what the outside of the vessel looks like right now. I will do sails and rigging in a whole nother episode. So let's go inside. Hi everybody, I've jumped into the main salon just to show you some of the batteries that we have on board. So check this out. This is our starboard bank, which is under the main seating area at the main dining table in the salon. There are 6 Mastervolt lithium ion batteries here. And now I'm just going to jump over to the port side, and you can see that there is an additional 6 here. Each compartment comes with its own ventilation and crazy fireproofing. That is exactly what these panels are here for. That was a RENA requirement that had to be factored in afterwards. And next up, I will show you into this main technical cabinet here and explain what all of these devices do on board for us. Okay, hi everybody. This is one of our main technical spaces on board. So for me, this just looks terrifying, but I've had to call in the resident electrical engineer to kind of take you on a left to right around this little compartment. So Chris, go ahead.
Okay, so starting on the left-hand side here, up the top, you've got 3 main battery contactors, and they control the 2 banks that we've got, because we've got a port battery bank and a starboard battery bank, which is split into 6 batteries each, and then also a feed through up into the flybridge distribution. As you can see, as you go along, there's a lot more heavy DC distribution. So the row of small breakers up the top with little yellow levers on them are all the power supplies to the C-zone modules around the boat. All the black cables you've got down the bottom of your main negative bars, and we've got a couple of C-zone meter interfaces in there reading voltage across the banks. On the far wall, we've got 3 100 amp dedicated house AC chargers that run off shore power or generator. So they can be combined with the 4 combi masters you've got on the right hand wall here to provide up to 700 amps worth of AC charge onto the battery bank when we're running shore power or generator. So put that in perspective, it can charge up the bank alone in about 2.5 hours from generator or shore power. The combi masters are wired in split phase parallel, so the combined output between the 4 units is 14 kilowatts of inverter power. And the idea is most of the time the boat will be run on generator during the day, but when we want to go into a quiet mode of operation, we can shut the generator off, and these units will take over the power demands and supply up to 14 kilowatts of quiet inverter power.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And the only thing that he didn't mention out of all of that thorough display is this room is self-contained and fully ventilated. More on some of the existing systems coming soon. Okay, this is the other technical space under the staircase on the other side of the boat. Chris, what do we have in here?
So this is more of an AV sort of internet hub where we've got the PEPWave routers, which take SIM cards depending on whereabouts in the world you are. There's a main network switch underneath it which spreads to all the other routers on the boat. We have a couple of DC-DC power supplies in there because a lot of this stuff runs off 12 volts.
So a lot of people have been asking us why we think we can control a vessel this size short-handed. Here is one of these devices. This is the ZF remote. And this is hardwired in, as you can see here, to 5 different locations on the yacht. There's 2 at the aft section, the one currently we're standing at now, which is on the bow, and then there's 2 port and starboard on the flybridge aft that you can actually lean over the side of the vessel and see completely down the hulls. So let me just take you through what this actually has on it. don't mind the tape here. These two toggles on the side are engine controls forward and reverse with throttle. This one here is bow thruster launch and receive. This is turning on this control and shutting down the helm station. And then this one down here is bow thruster left and right. So between all of this and the 5 different stations, combined with a headset or some other method of communication, we should be able to control this yacht short-handed relatively easily. And this is only one of 2 solutions that we have. This is the hardwired solution. Now, the other one that we have is a yacht controller. And this, we've got a couple of extra functions on this one that we don't have on the ZF Control. So this hasn't quite been set up yet, but some of the things that we do have are 2 anchor controls, both up, down. And then this is the button that tells you in between which anchor to go to. And then I think what we're going to do is this one here is going to be bow thruster launch and retrieve. This is obviously the power button for the remote. And then we're going to use these 2 as bow thruster, port, and starboard. And then this, I love these little joystick remotes because they kind of engage the whole system together. That is both engines with throttle and the bow thruster, and they teach it to do very specific movements. So we can slide left, or we can slide right, we can go forward, we can go backwards, we can twist either direction in the same spot. And this also has a really cool function called a sky hook, which means it will use this control and the PLC up in the flybridge, tie it in with the GPS, and it will use all 3 engines, i.e. the 2 engines and the bow thruster, to keep the entire yacht in one place without anybody having any input on it. And I know a lot of people are worried about the connectivity of these devices, but we have a specific Wi-Fi router under the eyebrow right up here for this device, and we should be able to connect and use it throughout the entire vessel. So that concludes some of these short-handed control systems that we've added onto this boat. Stay tuned, there's a little bit more to come. Yep, that's the creek at low tide that we're expected to leave through. Notice that bladder is very full and we're sitting approximately 10 feet above the creek with all those grounded boats. I am getting nervous about this, and sea trials are in 4 days. So another very popular question that I've got out of my comments section, and yes, I do obviously read these comments, is how do we launch and retrieve our tender? I mean, jet ski. Well, obviously our tender sits below these davits, and I've mentioned in our previous video that above the davits, the jet ski sits directly on top of them. So I've called back in our technical supervisor, Chris, to operate the crane for us right now to show you how we do all that. Chris, would you mind opening it up? And would we like to swing it out? That's pretty snazzy.
Very cool.
And I think if we stop it there and just drop the hook a little bit.
Yeah, so then we can go out.
Yeah, this would be after the jet ski has been attached. And we can launch it out.
Then we need some weight on the hook to be able to pull it down.
Fair enough.
There like that, it's got no weight on it, so it won't go up and down.
Got it.
As soon as it's got a jet ski hanging off it, obviously it works.
Okay. And do we want to stow it away so we can see what that all looks like and how neat and tidy it just tucks away. And then we can close the flap. The flap is actually there as a safety mechanism, and that is how we launch and retrieve our jet ski independently of the tender. So here we are currently on the aft cockpit of the vessel, and the one thing that I wanted to show you out here is our dive station. In this compartment down there we have a Yacht Pro 45 dive compressor that can fill 4 tanks at once. This is one of our tender lift winches. Here's a freshwater washdown. That is the controller for the air compressor. Then moving into the central compartment, this is where our bottle storage is, and this is where we will fill our bottles. because that is where the octopus connects to right there, this little black line. We did high ventilation capacity to pull through here, so that's what that little vent in the back there is, because it pulls air from this compartment as the tanks heat up while they're filling, through the back of this compartment, and then through this little grate right there in this compartment. And this is where our BCDs will be hanging when they're drying. So we are pulling all of the air across these hot tanks, and it is eventually venting out here into the atmosphere. But at the same time, it is drying our tanks. And just at the end of this, we have the tender operations for the davits. So right here are the davit winch controls, port starboard, up, down. We have the same control mirroring on the other side. We have the fire pump activation, which hopefully we never use, freshwater washdown, ZF handset plug-in from the ZF control that I just showed you earlier, and the very bottom one is where the crane plugs into. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Sketch to See. I really hope you enjoyed a more technical tour of our vessel. And if you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments and I will do my best to film or respond to you accordingly. If you've made it this far, you already know, and I really hope you're already subscribed, but one small click from you goes a long way for us. And if you're not already, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And as always, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at sketchtosee@gmail.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.